One job that you had that a couple people had questions about. One asked if you would ever do something like this, and one asked that about you said a little something about this about you having your own promotion and you starting your own promotion. Is that
Yes, that nearly
something
happened
you did,
I
and is
was
it
offered
something
the
you'd
money,
be
yeah,
interested in again?
in 2000, in 90, sorry, 1992. My great friend of mine, I will not mention his name on here, and the only reason is, um, not sure where that money would have come from.
Well, it is the wrestling business, you know.
Well, he wasn't nothing to do with the wrestling business. He
Like
was
that.
just he's a very close friend of mine. I'll leave his name out of this, but he came to a show with me, and this is how close we are. He didn't need to do this. I was going to leave. There's a point. I was leaving to go to India on the 1st of March, 1992, and I was away for the rest of the year, going from one country to the next. And then I came to America. My car had broke down, and I've been friends with this gentleman for 18 since I was 18. We met in the gym, and he was a big time businessman, and he didn't, I didn't know it was who he was at first, and we just became friends, and we've stayed friends. And he's one of my great friends, and he's done so much for me, whether he knows it or not, in many ways. But there was a time when I didn't have a car, and he was, and he's got all kinds going on. He had nightclubs and all kinds of stuff going on, and a big building firm and all kinds of stuff. And he was picking me up at my house and taking me to shows. And he took me to a show, and he was in Oldham. It was a double. I was doing the last night I was in England before it was so, unless it was a leap year, it was the 28th of February, um, 1992. He took me to a double, and it was Oldham first, which is just on the outskirts of Manchester, and then Bolton on the other side of Manchester. So I did a double out for both for All Star Promotions, and he watched the show, and he said, because business for All Star Promotions was on fire in '92, mostly because of Dave Taylor and Fit Finlay wrestling each other. But he asked me, Darren, can I ask you something? He sat and watched the show. He said that was an incredible show, because there's still all the best talent at the time in England, right? Like I was never a big anything in England, but I left the year after Finley moved to Germany. There was a lot of things that went on from then onwards, and it went completely different. He said, can I ask you who runs this? And I pointed at the fellow that run it. And I don't want to say his name because I feel bad because he don't know this. And he said, is he a bit of a divvy? Meaning a bit of a not right in the head. And I
Right.
said, he said, well, this show's incredible, but there's not even somebody selling popcorn. There's nobody selling T-shirts because he's got a business brain. And he said, you've told me that you don't make that much money unless you go overseas. Why aren't you making that much money? So his business brain's going. And he said, do you think you could run this? He said, what about all these buildings? I said, well, you could easily get a lot of this. This is a weird thing because I'm having to, I, this story gets back to Brian Dixon. He was all about Brian. He was like, we can just, he said, I can get you the money. Don't you worry. Because my whole thing, I always wanted a safe, or as safe as it can be, decent place for British wrestlers to work.
Right.
That where promoters didn't take you for a ride, you got a weekly paycheck of whatever it may be. Everything that, I'm going to have to say this, and it might have, but everything that NXT UK became, and there's people will knock NXT UK, but NXT UK became a safe, with the best trainers, a great training facility, and a, COVID knocked it about a bit. But anybody who works there, you're going to have the usual frustrations of because egos and whatever, but they all got paid for weekly wage. They all got the best train. They're all better for being there. They're all far, and they'll all tell you that they're all far better for being there. And we created some magic there in some of those specials we did. That was, I had the offer to do that. I always imagine that. And for anybody, I know this is going off topic, but anybody because there's also, I know there's myths out there about this, how NXT UK started. I'm telling you, whether you want to believe me or not, I'm telling you the truth, and I'm telling you the truth on the lives of my children. And if anybody knows me well enough, that they know that this is what it is. NXT UK was formed in the mind of Triple H 10 years ago. Because we were in England, and my friend Robbie Brookside was still in England. There was another friend of mine getting the extras. He's no longer with us, so I don't want to say too much, but I found out he was taking a few liberties with here's a little tip for everybody. Listen to what I'm going to say now. But he's not the only people in real power are the people who control the money. Whenever you get a position this is a good topic for this point. Whenever you get a position, never think you have any real power. Don't abuse that power, because you don't. It's one of the things that has got me through this. I have never thought I had any power, not that believe me, I can call up anybody and get a lot of things done, but I don't ever think I have, and I truly don't. Right? But this person that was getting the extras was taking a few liberties with people. He was charging them to get them tryouts with WWE. He was doing a few things that I didn't like. Although I knew him and I liked him and I got on well with him, I didn't like the way he was doing that, because I don't like that. I'm very there's a lot of, we've heard the word carny in wrestling. There's a lot of carny stuff goes on, and I don't like it. And I try to avoid it, and I try to change it. And I might as well say this, and I'm saying it now. That was the whole point of NXT, was to try to change as much of the you heard about the culture of NXT, was to change as much of the carny nonsense that goes on in wrestling, was to change that. That we're all polite athletes that you can be proud to be of, and not, oh my God, there's these carned up wrestlers. You can all take this how you want, and if you want to get offended, then I don't care. Come and take it out on me if you want. And I'm 54 and I really don't care. Right? I've never wanted, I'm a carny wrestler who's never acted like one. I want this to be something different. I want people to be able to hold your head up high that you're a professional wrestler or a sports center, whatever it may be. So 10 years ago, I asked my friend Robbie Brookside to take over when I got the job, to take over doing the extras. The first time, which was very quickly, we were in England. Triple H, he'd met Robbie, but because me and him used to travel together when we were as the Blue Bloods, before the Blue Bloods, you knew a lot about Robbie, because even when I was training with him, I would show him things. I said, oh yeah. And he just knew about Robbie. Oh yeah, Robbie told me this, Robbie. So he knew about Robbie, and they'd met and they'd always got on. And I'd asked Robbie to get me the extras for England, knowing that he's not going to abuse them, and he's not going to, when I say abuse them, I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean that he's not going to throw his power around. Right? Because he's as good as gold.
He's not going to take advantage.
He's not going to take advantage of any situation.
Right.
I'm saying this now because I know there's certain things going on in wrestling where people are getting a little bit of power and they start, or think, perceive power, and they start to take that. I hope you're listening to this. You have none. And there's people like me see right through you. I'll let that lay where it lays.
Indeed, indeed.
Right? So Triple H came to me and said, you know, Robbie, he said, this is 10 years ago. So any of this nonsense of it, yes, certain things hurried it up. But he said, we're going to open an NXT over here in the next few years. What if we bring Robbie over for a few months so he can learn our system? And so when I do open that up, he can run it. He came over 10 years ago now. Unfortunately, no, not unfortunately, far from it, because it's been great for and everybody will tell you that he never left.
Right.
Because they realized how good he was, and he is incredibly good, and he does babysit everybody and make sure everybody he gives. I hope people realize what a precious human being they've got when they get to train with him or get to have him in their daily lives. But so any of the, but that was all I when I heard that, I'm like, great. And it eventually paid off. Unfortunately, again, COVID and different things changed that. And there was a lot of people trying to write their own narrative about, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that and WWE's doing this. No, it was to have a decent place, because I know a lot of promoters take advantage of their talent. And if you think I don't know that, you are a fool. Right? And I wanted to take as much of that out of it as possible, because I was talent and I want the talent to be treated well.
Right.
And not treated like idiots, or
You
not having to,
you
not
were young
holding things
talent.
over their heads, which certain promoters do.
Right.
Right? I'm not going to get too far into this, but if you're listening and you are a promoter and you know that you do that, don't think that there isn't people like me that know about that. And one day that might come to bite you seriously. I'll leave it at that.
Well, let's move on to another subject of maybe someone else getting treated badly.